Have you ever wondered what it takes to be an automotive engineer? Today, I'm talking with Esther Unti of Lucid Motors, and in her words, I am an assistant chief engineer on Lucid's midsize CUV program. I help engineering teams solve problems and make trade offs. For example, if a team is trying to decide whether to make the car taller so you can fit more in the cargo area in the back or make it shorter so that it's more aerodynamic, I help gather up all the pros and cons, discuss various options, and work with the teams to present the data to my boss, the chief engineer, to make a decision. So, welcome to my library. Have a seat. We're going to have a great conversation. And Esther, the first question I would like for you to answer is, what skill do you have that would win you a weird world record?
I think for me, it would be making a healthy and tasty meal out of any ingredients. I was traveling a lot for work in my last job, and so it was like impossible to maintain normal groceries in my fridge. But I loved the challenge of coming home and like fishing through the cabinet to find something that would make a meal.
Yeah, yeah. Just the weird, obscure things we open the refrigerator and go, okay, I've got these things. I've got to eat dinner. Yeah.
Yeah, some call it girl dinner, I call it a challenge.
Imagine you're in an elevator. You're not going to do an elevator pitch. Instead, this person looks at you and goes, describe yourself to me in 3 words.
This is a tough one, but I think I would say one, artsy,
Hmm.
two, friendly,
Hmm.
and three, persistent.
Yes. Yes. And I know the artsy part because you use colored pencils to draw. And I love that.
Yes, I love colored pencils. I use colored pencils to draw for fun, but I've also used colored pencils to draw mechanical components before I knew how to use computer-aided design.
I love that.
Got.
Yeah, and me being an artist, I'd be right there with you. What is the weirdest situation where one of your skills just saved the day?
The first thing that came to mind for me is when I was in college, I was doing this like race car program called Formula SAE. And we were at competition at the end of the year with our electric race car, and it kept having these faults whenever it accelerated hard. The leading theory amongst us uneducated college kids was what's called electromagnetic interference, which is kind of thing that you think is happening when you can't figure out what actually is happening. But the working principle is that when you have a ton of electrical current going to a device, that like wire that's sending a lot of electrical current can actually induce currents through a magnetic field in the
Hmm.
nearby wires. And that meant we thought, at least, that our motor speed sensor was getting corrupted by the fact that the motor was accelerating. So the thing you do to fix electromagnetic interference is you have to shield the sensor wires with some sort of like a copper mesh. But we were in like the middle of Nebraska and we did not have copper mesh, but we did have like lots of scraps of copper wire. So I said, okay, well, what if we did like a 5-strand mesh braid around the sensor wire? And they were like, cool, yeah, does anyone know how to do that? And I was like, no, not at all. But I like knew how to French braid my hair, and I had read a
Hmm.
lot of those craft books when I was little of like learn how to do this hairstyle. So I just like said, okay, I'm going to give it a shot, and I taped 5 wires to the top of this like sensor cable, and then I just started going. And I it was the weirdest like out of body feeling because my hands just started doing it, and then all of a sudden it was like done, and I thought, man, like French braiding, really great skill for electric cars.
Girls, keep learning how to French braid your hair. You might save the race team someday.
It's also a great way to like keep your hair out of your face when you're doing braiding of copper mesh.
Oh yeah, yeah. So this is going to be a hard one for you. I can tell already. What skill do you use that would never fit on a resume but should?
For me, it's she goes to therapy. So I started going to therapy a couple years ago when I was
Uh-huh.
like super stressed at work. And I got all that dealt with. I'm like doing super well now. But along the way, I would have never guessed, I learned a ton about people and communication. At the time I was starting therapy, I was also managing a group of 10 people. And we had a really tough project to do in a really short amount of time. And I had to manage all these people, a lot of whom were straight out of college. So this was kind of their first job. And I also had a bunch of individual work that I was tasked with. It was a job that took a lot of emotional energy, and I was kind of struggling with that. But through therapy, I learned not only how to deal with my own stresses, which was super, super useful and recommended to anyone, but also how to get a message across to people. How, like, the timing, the delivery, and the content of a message all affect the way that it's received. How to sit with other people's discomfort. If somebody is maybe a little bit frustrated with a situation, I can offer solutions and make changes to my actions, but I don't need to dwell on the past or feel like I messed up for too long. And I even got to teach some of my team members some of the skills I had learned in therapy, like I statements where you say I feel blank when blank, I need blank, as a way to sort of not point fingers or anything, but just state your needs and see what you get. So totally, that was I mean, I wouldn't put goes to therapy on my resume, but honestly, I kind of would hire somebody who did.
Well, that also probably helped teach you how to manage 10 different personalities too, because that is
So
a
much so.
lot of personality. Yeah.
Hmm.
This one you're gonna love. In book number 2, Addie takes on learning how to build she's inventing the e-bike out of scraps. I've done that before at the drifting trike. And then she goes and volunteers with her favorite neighbor, Mr. Collins, and fixes his lawnmower so that she can mow his grass for him because she just wants to do that. So there's all this hands on, asking a lot of questions. Why did this work? Why isn't this working? When did curiosity actually help change your path? So that whole why is this done the way it's done? Why do you do this? How do we make this lawnmower work? When did that really seep into you and you go, "Okay, curiosity, come to me."
Yeah, it's a good question because the career path that I've taken where I was managing those 10 people and doing all the individual work, that was actually a direct result of me kind of like Addie, asking why a lot. So when I was younger, I read every single one of the 64 original Nancy Drew books. Now, I don't
Yeah.
know how many people still read Nancy Drew books, but basically, if you don't know, Nancy Drew is a detective who solved mysteries with her two best friends. I kind of wanted to be Nancy Drew, but I didn't end up pursuing a career as a detective. I pursued a career as an engineer. And when I first got out of college, I was working as a suspension engineer at Lucid Motors. Most of my job was to test cars with different suspension components on them and make changes. What in reality happened is that the cars would break a lot, not in a wheel fell off kind of way, but more like electronic problems. So you'd be driving along and all of a sudden the car would stop, or maybe you would go to turn it on in the morning and it just wouldn't turn on. So, okay, as frustrating as it was also a prime opportunity to play Nancy Drew. Every time, Nancy Drew solved problems systematically. And so I tried my best to do my Nancy Drew impression. And whenever we couldn't get a car to turn on, I would think down systematically, what are all the different things that a car needs to turn on? Are all of the important points getting the power that they need? Or are these two important devices talking to one another correctly? Are there any safety checks that didn't get passed? And this curiosity for figuring out what's going wrong with these cars and solving mysteries systematically ended up kind of earning me a bit of a reputation for fixing cars, which shortly after kind of converted into the vehicle controls team, asking me to start doing more than just fixing the cars, but also tuning them. The feeling of how, when you press the accelerator pedal, tuning how much power the car makes, which shortly thereafter turned into my new career. I ended up hiring a team full of engineers, and now there's a whole team doing that kind of tuning.
That is so cool. I remember you telling stories about being out on the racetrack and tuning in real time and making changes to the car, so that's and kids, if you didn't hear it at the beginning, she works for Lucid Motors. So go look up Lucid Motors online and take a look at the cars that she's sitting in, the vehicles that she's helping to engineer because they're so cool. Thank you for being on the show with us, Esther. Everyone, seriously, I'm telling you, go check them out. Go see what she does because what she's creating is phenomenal. And thank you for watching Books That Build Skills. If today's story sparked an idea, or it gave you courage or helped you to see the impossible become possible, then it did its job. So remember, skills aren't born, they are built. one choice, one challenge, one brave step at a time. So hit subscribe down below, share this with someone who needs it, and keep exploring and building and reading. Read, 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 and dream big. I'm Loxley Brown. This is Books That Build Skills, and you're just getting started.